So now if we store that brush, it will store not just this one image, it has all of the images in it, and you can see that right here by show film strip. Now we have the whole image sequence, the whole walk sequence with transparent background. Now that's what we're looking for. Now of course this is something we should have started with, right? Initially when we rendered this in Anime Studio or in Moho or any other program, if you want that dragon or whatever the character is you have, if you want that to be composited somehow, you either do a green or a blue background from the get-go, or even better, if you have the option, is you render not only the red, green, blue channels, but also the alpha channel indicating transparent, yes or no, right? The level of transparency. Sometimes you do that by a level of distance. The depth could be actually what it is, and then anything in the foreground will have a value that's very different from the background, which is probably black or 0 or something like that. At any rate, whichever way you use it, if you don't have that information, you can probably restore it, and that's exactly how you can do that. Now, this was the way where we manually select it, right, with the marquee selection tool here. We manually drag and drop here, and then Alt key down to select it all, right? Another way to do that is, since you have the animation stored, and you want to make sure you do that, another way to do that is to pick it up right here as animated brush, right? So you make sure you have the animation in here. You can turn the eye off, and then you say pick it up or use as animated brush. Boom, now we can store it. Store the animated brush. Now this one is fully opaque, right? It didn't have the automatic keying, whereas when I did the marquee selection, it applied the background color, which is green here in the lower left. You see that? The secondary color applies that, it looks for that and flags the alpha in the brush as transparent. But now that we have this animated sequence in the brush, and I can see it here as the film strip, I can still do the same thing with regard to keying. I can go to brush and transparency and color key. Now there's a couple of other options here that might work better. Feathering and growing and changing this for the changing the size of the extent of the alpha and so on, but that's after the fact. You want to first start with color key, right? And one way to do that also, by the way, is that same selector tool you have here. You can right click it, right? Use this to pick up the brush, and then right click to go and do the color key. And so here I'm going to go select green, and everything here that's green will be transparent. Everything else remains opaque. You can adjust this a little bit. Don't mess with that too much unless you really know where you're going with it. There are a couple of scenarios where this might be necessary, but for the most part, you see, you don't want to lose part of the body or the wings and stuff like that. So I would just leave it at default for most part. And then you can also invert the key if you need, in fact, the transparency around it. You can see that it takes a little while because it's doing that on every single frame, right, through the entire image sequence that's in the brush of this animated brush. So we have that, and then of course we can store that, store and manage a copy. So now we have the same brush here with the film strip, and here we go. Now you might see a slight difference. Let's go and scroll down to the bottom and then look and compare the same thing here, right? So we're at the very bottom of the film strip. Let's do the same with this one. Let's see the film strip here, and this one is good too. Yep. I'm looking to see if there's perhaps one empty show film strip. Yeah, see this one. Oh no, this one is a single frame. That doesn't matter. This one, that's not the same thing. Okay, so we're good. We have an image sequence. Let's say we're going to use this one here. We're going to dismiss the others. Or let's just do it one more time in case that was confusing. So how to quickly turn this into a animation where the image, each image has a transparent background rather than this green, right? So we have stored, we've loaded the image. In fact, let's redo that from scratch. Let's animate, let's open the stored animation that has the green. This one here, background green, right? So we've arranged for that, and this could be straight output from whatever, Carrara or Moho, Anime Studio in this case. Let's say you rendered it against the green background. How do you turn that background transparent? Again, not in the animation, but in the animated brush you can do that. So simply go here, and say use as animator brush, and then pick it up as a brush or store it. And finally, you want, and that's really only needed temporarily. You don't even need it at this point, right? So again, let's go. The fastest way is to say use as animator brush. It's loaded it into the brush. We don't have to have a stored copy to work with it. It is the working animator brush right now, and we can see it simply by going to the brush tool and enabling the eye. Then we can see it's in there, but with the opaque green. All right. So after doing that, we'll simply use the brush transparency color key. Okay, pick this up, and it does it on every frame. You can see it takes a little while as it cycles through that. And now that's one that you want to store, right? So go to store and manage copy. Now you have a stored copy of this animation. Now at this point, you could actually get rid of the animation you have here behind. This animation is no longer needed. In fact, the sky animation is the one you need again, right? So let's go work on that. Because, you know, at this point, you have this brush, and you can go and paint with it all across. You can make it smaller and have him go fly around, or do all sorts of fun stuff with that, even across the animation. In fact, that's really a fun one to do too. I'm going to go and see if I can go with this. Yep, and I'm going to go with the slightly larger version here. I'm going to have him run right in front of it here. Right, so normally I would go from left to right, and then perhaps adjust a little bit the step distance here, so it's a little bit tighter, closer together, something like this. Right. As I do that, though, I hold the Alt key down, and then what's going to happen? It's cycling through the animation here. Right, so I'm going to go from the first or wherever I want to start, and then hold the Alt key down as I'm clicking and dragging my dragon from the left to right, and I keep going. And maybe I have another one going up and down, and I have another one going up and up and up and up and down like that. And then also perhaps change size. Right? I can make them go tiny little ones here, coming through. There's a whole family of them now. All right. And so we've created a mess, but that's the intent here, right? So now there's a couple of other things we want to do, and that's of course to draw our dragon against this fiery plasma noise background we've seen a little bit earlier.